What's up guys? Welcome to AnimeKouhai, an extension of Anime Senpai PH channel. All pieces of information are derived from the light novel. In today's video, we will continue Chapter 6, Volume 7 of the light novel, entitled Gods and Demon Lords. This video is the second part of Chapter 6 in our Tensura spoiler video series. If you haven't watched the previous episodes, feel free to check out the links in the description below. Now, let's get to the video. The servant finally asked for apologies for doubting Datta and told him that he would begin preparing for the retreat. Datta responded that was good and he would prepare another present for the new king. The servant left the room. Preparations went quickly after that, and before much longer, Datta had put Megam behind him. He was right to do so, because if he had dawdled any further, he might have had an anger demon trying to kill him. Edward, newly crowned king of Farmus, was beside Datta with excitement. The nobility across the land was falling over themselves to pledge their support to Edward. It expanded and strengthened his forces. It surprised Edward to see the Hiriam side with Edmaris, his elder brother, and when rumor sided in turn with Yom, Edward feared his entire plan would fail. But the heavens hadn't abandoned him. With Archbishop Rahim dead, the wheels had begun turning. Edward had been informed that Hinata herself was off to slay Rimuru, and she was with the Crusader forces in tow. Even better, the three battle sages, the heroes of the Holy Empire of Lobelius, had offered their support to Edward's cause, and deployed the Temple Knights for the effort. The three battle sages were the royal officers second only to Hinata in strength. The Divine Enemy label hadn't been formally announced yet, but given this deployment, it had to be a matter of time. The Temple Knights were assigned the task of defeating the demon who killed Rahim, but that was just a convenient excuse. In Edward's mind, they were actually aiming to mount a resistance against the Demon Lord Rimuru. They were armed with an enormous force that was essentially the federated armies of the Western nations. That was why he granted them safe passage through his lands, as well as the right to engage in any military activity they saw fit. Edward had no intention of tangling with Rimuru, but under the circumstances, that didn't matter. There was no way that Hinata would lose to the Demon Lord. And with this larger force, Edward reasoned that defeating the Tempest forces wasn't an impossibility at all. Veldora remained a concern though, but with a dragon that finicky, the combined forces of the Western nations ought to be able to seal him up once again. Now Edward needed a just cause to link all these efforts together, and that was already taken care of. A powerful merchant from the east had visited him, bringing a letter from Earl Nidal of Megam. It was a request for help, and it instantly solved all Edward's problems. It didn't take long for him to reach a conclusion. With reinforcements flowing through the border from all sides, it might be best to use Megam's rescue as an excuse to deploy his own. A full-on war wasn't in his plans, but deploying his force outside the city walls should prove enough of a deterrent. There was nobody around Edward to warn him otherwise, which he would come to regret later, as he sent out the order. In Glenda's eyes, the plan had gone seriously out of whack. But that sort of thing was a given on the battlefield. Glenda just had to adjust her tactics, make things work more her way, and she would be fine. Glenda looked at it that way, and so things didn't seem so bad to her. A large number of nations were taking an interest in their moves, and a virtual army of journalists were here to see her in action. Everything was set up, just as Glenda wanted it. Rimuru not focusing exclusively on Hinata was an unwanted surprise. But as Glenda saw it, it just meant Rimuru spread out his forces too wide for his own good. So it wasn't a problem. Datta had fled the country, but he had left a team of anti-demon experts with King Edward as a symbol of goodwill, each one battle-steeled and ranking an A or better. Glenda figured they could be trusted to do their job. She idly thought that there was no reason not to sacrifice them if they needed to. No matter how it turned out, Glenda optimistically believed that the demon would be out of her hair. But that breezy mood didn't last for long. Diablo, the demon in question, let out an evil laugh as he spread his bat-like wings, looking like a sign of the apocalypse, as he surveyed the land below. Diablo was searching for the traitors who outed him, the culprits that caused shame and embarrassment in front of his beloved Rimuru. And Diablo wasn't in a forgiving mood. Not once in his life had he ever felt anything resembling fear. But the mere thought of being relieved of his work duties made Diablo quiver. Picturing Rimuru staring at him and saying, "Alright, you can go away now," sent shivers up his spine, and the terror tore him apart. Now Diablo had to pay back the people responsible for that feeling. He contemplated what he would do once he tracked them down, and it made the smile even broader. Then Diablo found Edward, the New King, at the rear of the forces. With Edward were several others who stood out of the crowd, and strength-wise at least somewhat enough so that they could at least go toe-to-toe with Diablo. Diablo wasn't sure, but they could be part of the 10 great saints. Rimuru instructed Diablo not to kill anyone who wasn't involved. If they were involved, that didn't apply. At least that was how Diablo and Hakuro, his overseer, had interpreted the missive. Any troops not defending themselves would be let go, of course, but if they attempted to fight him, that was another matter, especially if they decided to initiate hostilities themselves. Then, there was no need for mercy. Diablo resisted the urge to greet this New King at once. He sent a thought communication and reported his findings to Hakuro. Diablo told Hakuro that he had found one standout among them headed their way, and that one should keep Suranga occupied, he would imagine. Diablo said he believed he was related to Lubelius, the origin of those rumors against him, so capturing him alive would make him a useful pawn in their negotiations. Hakuro responded roger that, and he would inform Suranga. According to Diablo, this target was leading approximately 5,000 troops. By the Free Guild's ranking, this included several fighters graded at least an A. Hakuro replied perfect, and he would point Gobta and Gabel at them. There was no need to worry, because he would be watching them. Hakuro told Diablo to feel free to do whatever he liked. Diablo responded that it was a fine idea, and it relieved him to hear that from Hakuro. With his report given, there was now no need for restraint, and Diablo flew down toward his prey. The sight of Diablo swooping in from out of nowhere froze the blood in Edward's veins, and Saare, who was enjoying a cup of tea with Edward, was barely able to react at all. Diablo greeted Edward with the words, "Hello there." He told him that he believed they had met before, and his name was Diablo. He gave them an elegant bow, but before he could even finish his greeting, Edward's knight captain was barking out orders. He ordered his men to fan out, take defensive positions, and protect King Edward. The royal guard jumped into action, grabbed Edward, and trundled him toward the rear. The guard instantly formed a line of defense to cover Edward and create a wall of humanity between the devil and the king. Diablo took his time to react and simply stood there while all these troops scurried around. As far as the demon was concerned, his target was in sight. The hard work was all done, so there was no reason for undue haste. In another instant, Diablo found himself surrounded by Saare and his forces that covered the large, opulent royal tent the demon had landed in front of. Diablo looked at them all and enjoyed the sight, but although nobody noticed it, his eyes were burning with rage. Soon, a group of journalists was on the scene, and they were curious to see what was going on. Diablo kept smiling. He told them that he would not harm any of them, and politely asked them to kindly stay over there for him. Then, with a snap of his fingers, the press corps was covered in a barrier, a bit of helpful consideration on Diablo's part to ensure against collateral damage. He also meant to suggest that exiting the barrier would be seen as hostility punishable by death, but the journalists never even entertained that thought. By the time the forces were all in position, Edward had regained some of his composure. He recognized Diablo as the agent of Demon Lord Rimuru and asked him what brought him here. The greeting may have lacked much in the way of royal majesty, but it certainly succeeded in sounding pompous. Diablo instructed Edward to send his troops back immediately and hold talks with Sir Yum. He warned him that Edward's refusal meant Edward would have to taste the kind of fear the king was better off not knowing about. For appearances, at least, he began by recommending talks. That, however, was not what Diablo really sought. If anything, it would be a pain for Diablo if Edward actually agreed to them. Edward laughed and said, what a strange proposal this was. All of this began when his brother embezzled the reparation money from their accounts. They were simply trying to recover these funds in a gesture of sincerity toward the nation of Tempest. Edward said that he saw no need for Diablo to meddle in their affairs. Diablo asked if that meant Edward was stating his intention to adhere to their peace accords. Edward said of course, but there was no need to. He had been almost tricked himself. Edward told Diablo to stop playing dumb because he had seen through Diablo's little schemes. Edward said Diablo were conspiring with his brother Admaris to charge them for double the reparations, and this Rimuru fellow had already demonstrated just how shallow Rimuru was to Edward, because Rimuru sought to plunder them by fair means or foul, and Rimuru was spreading the seeds of war across the land. Edward continued his accusation that Diablo might have killed Archbishop Rahim in a bid to keep him quiet, but his words were recorded. Edward took Diablo's silence as an invitation to chatter on and on. The crystal ball Edward took out was held high above his head to ensure the press on hand could see it. It depicted a very haggard-looking Rahim, perhaps after a torture session or two. Rahim was shouting that he had no intention of betraying them and asking forgiveness. One could tell any viewer that this was footage of Rahim's final moments in this world, and they would believe it. That's it for this video, guys. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe and click the bell notification icon so you will never miss the upcoming continuation of Tensura's spoiler video series. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. Shout out to the top 10 commenters on my previous video. Shout out to Michael, John Lester, Edge Live Gaming, Rem Baru, No One, Kuan Xuan, Joji Ray, Jamie Ira, Amiral Tempest, and last but not the least, shout out to Peanut. I'll see you guys in the next video.